The Suzuki Jimny is one of those rare cars that punches well above its weight in reputation. In the UK, across Europe, and all the way to Australia, the Jimny has developed a cult following that borders on obsession. It is small, unapologetically boxy, and built on a ladder frame at a time when most other compact SUVs have long since switched to car-like platforms. For some people, this little 4x4 is irresistible. For others, its compromises make it a poor fit for daily life. The real question, then, is whether you should buy a used one, and that answer depends very much on what you expect from it. At its core, the Jimny is not trying to be something it isn't. It is not a family crossover that disguises itself as rugged, but shies away from mud. It is not a luxurious compact SUV aimed at motorway cruising. Instead, it is a back-to-basics, no-nonsense off-roader that just happens to come in a pint-sized package. That is part of its charm. The current generation, introduced in 2018, cemented this identity with its squared-off styling, exposed hinges, and upright stance that made many people compare it to a shrunken Land Rover Defender or Mercedes G-Wagon. Those comparisons may seem flattering, but in spirit they are accurate. Like those icons, the Jimny prioritizes utility and capability over refinement. One of the biggest reasons buyers are drawn to it, particularly in the UK and Europe, is its off-road ability. Thanks to short overhangs, a proper low-range gearbox, live axles, and true four-wheel drive hardware, the Jimny goes places that crossovers with all-wheel drive systems simply cannot. Green laning in the UK, scrambling through muddy forest tracks in Germany, or tackling tight bush trails in Australia, the Jimny performs with surprising confidence. Its tiny footprint means it slips between trees or over obstacles that larger SUVs would struggle with. And because it is relatively light, it can crawl through boggy terrain without sinking. It is, in a sense, a tool, one that appeals to farmers, outdoor enthusiasts, and anyone who enjoys venturing off the beaten path. But if the Jimny is so capable, why is there hesitation about buying one used? The answer comes down to its compromises. This is not a car designed with motorway comfort in mind. The ride is bouncy, the suspension is firm, and wind noise becomes obvious once you're above 60 miles per hour. In the three-door version, interior space is laughably tight, especially for passengers in the back. Boot space with the rear seats up is almost non-existent, and even with the seats folded down, you're not exactly going to carry half the contents of IKEA home. Safety is another consideration. Euro NCAP gave the Jimny a disappointing score, and part of that comes down to its size and lack of advanced driver assistance systems. It is a small, upright box without the latest crash mitigation tech, and buyers need to understand that reality before committing. Where the Jimny shines, however, is in reliability. Mechanically, it is simple, and that simplicity tends to mean fewer things go wrong compared with more complex SUVs. The 1.5-liter petrol engine is robust if serviced regularly, and most examples rack up years of dependable service. That said, there are issues you need to be aware of when shopping for one used. Because the alternator sits low in the engine bay, water crossings or deep mud can cause damage if the car has been used heavily off-road without proper protection. Some owners have reported oil leaks and timing-related issues on higher mileage examples, usually stemming from neglected servicing. The clutch on manual cars can wear more quickly if the Jimny has been used extensively for off-road work, and while the automatic gearbox is simple and generally reliable, it becomes expensive to put right if anything does go wrong. Rust is another thing to watch out for. The Jimny's ladder frame is sturdy, but vulnerable to corrosion if not cared for, and in climates where road salt is common, that can become a serious problem. It's worth crawling underneath or paying a specialist to check the underbody for rust, damage, or poorly patched repairs. For buyers in Australia, there is an additional consideration. Many Jimnys are used in harsh bush conditions where flood exposure and extreme off-road use are more common. Evidence of mud, silt, or electrical corrosion should make you cautious. In Europe, meanwhile, the Jimny's popularity has meant many have been modified. Lift kits, aftermarket bumpers, bigger tires, and roof racks are common. Some modifications are fine if done professionally, but badly fitted accessories or cut-rate suspension lifts can introduce problems. In the UK, heavily modified Jimnys can also create insurance headaches. The question of cost is crucial because the Jimny has proven remarkably resilient on the used market. In the UK and Europe, the most recent generation, which started in 2018, often sells for between £20,000 and £30,000, with pristine or very low mileage examples sometimes going higher still. That means you may be paying close to new car prices for a vehicle that has been used. In Australia, the picture is similar. Used Jimneys commonly list between $30,000 and $40,000 Australian dollars, depending on year and specification, and the 5-door Jimny XL, where available, usually commands even more. This is partly down to Suzuki's limited supply, partly down to sheer demand, and partly because the Jimny has become something of a cult collectible. In Europe, especially in countries like Germany and the Netherlands, prices vary depending on local taxes and demand, but the overall trend is the same. These cars hold their value. For you as a buyer, that means two things. First, you will likely pay a premium compared to other small SUVs of a similar age. Second, if you look after it, you'll probably get much of that value back when you sell. Running costs are relatively modest, but not class-leading. Fuel economy is reasonable around town, but because the Jimny has the aerodynamics of a brick and the drivetrain of a truck, it is not frugal on motorways or under heavy loads. If you tow or carry equipment regularly, expect fuel consumption to rise sharply. Insurance costs can be higher than you might expect for a small car, again because of its popularity and relatively high resale value. Servicing is straightforward, and most independent garages in the UK, Europe, and Australia can handle routine work without issue. Genuine Suzuki parts are widely available, and aftermarket suppliers offer a vast array of accessories. The only time you may face high bills is if major drivetrain components like the transfer case or differentials need replacing, but those issues are rare on well-maintained examples. One of the most important things to accept before buying a Jimny is that practicality simply isn't its strong suit. The 3-door model, which is most common, has tiny rear seats and a boot that barely fits a week's shopping. Long journeys with 4 adults are not pleasant, and family buyers will quickly feel cramped. The 5-door Jimny XL, sold in Australia and some other markets, improves things somewhat, but it is still small by SUV standards. This is not the vehicle you buy if you regularly haul kids, dogs, and luggage. It is the car you buy if you value compactness and off-road talent above space. So should you buy one? The answer is yes if you know exactly what you are getting into. If you live in rural Britain and want something to handle muddy lanes or farm tracks without taking up half the driveway, the Jimny makes a lot of sense. If you are in Germany or France and want a quirky, capable 4x4 that stands out from the sea of generic crossovers, it will charm you. If you are in Australia and want a small but mighty off-roader that can squeeze down tracks where a Land Cruiser is simply too big, it is one of the most appealing options around. On the other hand, if most of your driving is on the motorway, if you need lots of interior space, or if crash safety scores and high-tech driver aids are priorities, you will likely be happier in a different vehicle. When approaching a used Jimny, you have to be picky. Look for a full-service history, evidence that the underbody has been protected, and signs that the car hasn't been drowned in rivers or hammered mercilessly off-road. Don't be seduced too quickly by modified examples unless you can verify the quality of the work. Prices are high, but that is offset by excellent resale value. And above all, test drive one in the conditions you expect to use it in. If you are mostly a city driver, take it on the motorway during your test, and be honest about whether you can live with the noise and firmness. If you want it for off-roading, see how it feels on rougher ground. The Jimny is not a compromise-free vehicle. It is one that asks for understanding and rewards you if your lifestyle matches its character. In the end, buying a used Suzuki Jimny is not a decision you make with spreadsheets alone. It is as much about your heart as it is about your head. You actually buy one because you like the way it looks, because you admire its honest engineering, and because you enjoy the fact that it is different from the countless crossovers that dominate the roads. It will not be the most practical or comfortable choice, but it will probably be the most fun. If you found the video useful, be sure to hit the like button to support us. Thank you.